Well, ladies and gentlemen, we do have some major updates regarding college football. It's come out now, the start times on the new 12-team playoff structure. We're going to be discussing that. We're going to be looking at the current playoff chances for a lot of these Power 4 teams, as well as the Group of 5 auto bid. But this is going to take some getting used to, so let's look at the breakdown right now. The 2024 college football playoff schedule starting on a Friday, December 20th. You're going to have the first round games. So the first 4 overall seeds, all the conference champions, they will not be playing in the first round. You're going to get 5v12, you're going to get 6v11, you're going to get 7v10, and you're going to get 8v9. Those are the matchups that I'm referring to. And the first one will be on Friday night. That is an on-campus game at 8 o'clock at night on ESPN/ABC. That is very likely will be a big game because that's a primetime start time. The next one will be on Saturday at noon. I'm guessing that will probably be the 5v12 matchup because it's noon. It's going to be on TNT. It'll be interesting to see the graphics package TNT has when it comes to college football. And then you've got a 4 o'clock game Saturday afternoon that will also be on TNT. So a doubleheader, noon and then 4. And then the primetime Saturday night game at 8 o'clock, that will be back on ABC. So those are the first 4 playoff games. Those teams will advance, and they will take on the top 4 overall seeds in the semifinals. And these are official bowl games. The first round, they're not bowl games. They're on-campus games. Some people were saying maybe they would make them bowl games anyways. Maybe they will get a sponsor for them. I don't know. I think that'd be stupid. It would kind of devalue them, but it really doesn't matter. But getting to these would be the de facto New Year's 6 games about a week and a half later on the 31st. You do have a game at 7:30. That is the Fiesta Bowl, and that'll be a quarterfinal. You do have Wednesday, January 1st. That is New Year's Day at 1 o'clock. That's going to be the Peach Bowl. You've got the 5 o'clock game, and then you do have the 8:45 game. So pretty standard start times for a lot of those bowls. They're still going with a really late start for the Sugar Bowl at 8:45 in New Orleans, which I think, really it's like a 9 o'clock start because the Rose Bowl normally goes over, but they have to start the Rose Bowl at 5 o'clock because they want to get the perfect sunset. That's 5 o'clock on the East Coast. Really, it's 2 o'clock in Pasadena, and then you do have the semifinal games taking place. One on the 9th, one on the 10th, both of them at 7:30. So a different semifinal structure because we're used to seeing both the semifinal games happen back-to-back, one at 4 and then one at 8. Now they're both on at 7:30, one on Thursday, one on Friday, the Orange Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, and then you do have the national title taking place on the 20th, which is 1 week pushed back from where we originally had, or it might be 2 weeks. No, I think it is one. I think it's 1 week back, January 20th. Definitely later, almost into February, but that is just with the playoff expansion. So I wanted to discuss that. And then we also did have this stuff come out. NBC, they've got the primetime 7:30 games, the broadcast rights for the Big Ten, and this is their preferred primetime lineup schedule. Iowa at Minnesota, what are we doing there? That's not a great game, but you can see Illinois at Penn State. That's another lackluster game if we're going to be honest. Michigan at Washington. I understand the idea of the rematch, but I think both Michigan and Washington probably going to be a little bit down this coming year. Ohio State at Oregon. So that's a primetime 7:30 game I would expect. It would be 4:30 Pacific. Iowa at Michigan State. Penn State at Wisconsin. USC at Washington. FSU at Notre Dame. Oregon at Wisconsin. USC at UCLA. And then Oregon traveling to Washington. Those are not confirmed, but that's what they want. And then when it comes to a conference by conference breakdown, playoff chances in terms of percent, you can see this is the ACC. Right now it looks like FSU with around a 3-point advantage over Clemson in terms of being first in the ACC. They've got around a 36% chance to make the playoff. Clemson sitting at around a 27% chance. Louisville ahead of Miami, but they're right next to each other at around 18% chance. How about SMU joining the ACC, sitting with around a 17% chance? I think they returned Preston Stone. He was injured towards the end of last year. He is a dynamic dual threat. NC State is a team that I think is being underrated by the FPI, sitting outside of the top 25. They will very likely have a preseason initial AP ranking inside of the top 20. North Carolina, California may be a little underrated. Virginia Tech as well. And then those bottom teams, I really wouldn't pay much attention to those. I know Syracuse has a very easy schedule, but I just don't see them doing much. Moving on to the Big 12, it is a complete mosh pit. You can just tell by the rankings, Kansas, the number one team in the conference outside of the top 15. So there's a lot of above average teams, but there's really no elite teams. They've got a 24% chance of making the playoff. Kansas State, who is probably the number one or number two pick in terms of getting that auto bid, winning the conference. Utah is probably the number one pick. They're all the way down at 27, but you can see how close it is with Kansas being at 17 and then TCU at 30. So there's only 13 spots separating like 7 teams there in the Big 12. And they've all got 21% chance, 16% chance for Arizona. They've got a very talented team. Oklahoma State sitting at around 13% chance. Utah at around 12.5% chance. Texas Tech possibly going to be good this year. I know there's a lot of juice in that program. TCU, UCF. You've got West Virginia. There is Colorado. And then Iowa State with all the others. You can see Cincinnati, BYU, and Houston, some of the newcomers there all the way down at the bottom. Moving on to the Big Ten, you do have Oregon right now with an initial preseason FPI ranking above Ohio State, mainly due to the quarterback situation with Dylan Gabriel. Ohio State does have the better roster, but Oregon, they've got the more experienced, better QB. Right now you can see Oregon giving a 76% chance to make the playoff. Ohio State sitting at around a 67% chance. Penn State at around a 59% chance. So FPI has come out and said Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State very likely to make the playoff, all above 50% chance. You do have Michigan sitting at around a 28.5% chance. It really drops off with USC at around a 13% chance. And then Washington, I think from this conference, I know people will say the dark horse possibly is Nebraska due to their schedule. I just can't see it, especially if they start Dylan Raiola, a true freshman. It's not going to happen year one to where they make the playoff. But I do expect Oregon, Ohio State. You could very easily see Penn State. Michigan's probably a fringe team. USC, it just depends. Replacing Caleb Williams, how good is that defense now? You do also have Washington, Iowa, Wisconsin. It's very unlikely those teams end up making the playoff. I thought this was funny. The Pac-12 is technically still a conference. These are Power 5 teams or Power 4 teams, however you want to say it. Oregon State and Washington State. Oregon State sitting as a top 40 team with around a 10% chance to make the playoff. They will be playing a bunch of Mountain West games because they've got to deal with the Mountain West. So does Washington State. And then you do have the SEC. Obviously, the SEC is going to have a bunch of teams. Georgia at almost an 80% chance to make the playoff. They have an initial ranking of number 1 overall. You do have Texas, the newcomer, at around a 68% chance. Bama sitting around a 57% chance. Oklahoma at around a 36% chance, along with Tennessee and Missouri. So Missouri actually with a higher chance than both Tennessee and Oklahoma. That's because Missouri has notably an easier schedule than both Oklahoma and Tennessee. And they love Oklahoma apparently inside of the top 10 in terms of the FPI. Now, Oklahoma does have a talented roster. It'll be interesting with Jackson Arnold and joining the SEC. That's definitely a step up in terms of play. But you would say right now, Georgia is a lock. I mean, if we're being honest, Texas is pretty much a lock unless something crazy happens. Although, I don't know. I mean, Texas is in a lot tougher of a conference. I understand they had a really good year last year. They made the 4-team playoff. They returned Ewers. But I don't know if I could call Texas an 100% lock. I think I need to see more from their program in terms of stability year in and year out, especially with them joining the SEC and the schedule getting a lot tougher. Bama with Jalen Milroe. I think Jalen Milroe is going to be really good. Last year, he was kind of underrated by people because he started off the year bad. They benched him like week 3. But the dual threat, he's a big body QB. He's got a good arm. Now he's got experience. I think Alabama's going to make the playoff with Jalen Milroe. So I would say Georgia, Bama to me. It's not that Bama's a complete lock, but I'd be very surprised with a returning QB that I think is much improved, and he's a good dual threat, classic, big-bodied college quarterback. I think they'll make it. And then looking, you could see Missouri make it. LSU is always a mixed bag. They're probably a fringe team. Like, you just know LSU is going to have 3 losses, maybe 4 losses, and they're going to try and argue that they should be, the number 11 team, the last team in, because we would expect the number 12 team to be a group of 5 team. And then, of course, people are going to be complaining this year about the group of 5 team getting an auto bid because they very likely will take the spot of maybe a Penn State, maybe an LSU, maybe a Tennessee, maybe a Missouri. One of those teams that possibly goes 9-3, they're going to be left out because there's going to be an auto bid from the group of 5, which I think is good for the college football ecosystem personally. You can see UTSA with around a 15.5% chance, Memphis at around an 8% chance, Tulane at around a 6% chance, FAU given a chance to make the playoff as the auto bid from the group of 5 along with East Carolina. And then you also do have the Mountain West with Boise State at around a 16.5% chance. Fresno State, they open on the road at Michigan in week 1, along with San Diego State and San Jose State with just around 2% chances for each of them. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.